Every summer it's the same story. One Premier League club spends more on a single midfielder than 3 foreign clubs spend on their entire first-team squad combined. And every summer, fans in Italy, France, Portugal, the Netherlands watch their best players get sold north, their broadcast deals get embarrassed on the world stage, and their leagues quietly slide into feeder league status. Nobody wants to say it out loud, but here it is. This isn't 5 competitive leagues anymore, it's 1 league and 4 supporting acts. Today I want to break down exactly how the Premier League got here. Not just they have more money, the specific mechanisms, the loopholes, the double standards, because once you see how this machine actually works, you can't unsee it. Let's start with the scale of this because it's genuinely hard to grasp. UEFA published a report tracking club finances across Europe from 2014 to 2024. In that decade, Premier League clubs alone added 1.5 billion euros in TV revenue growth. Every other top division league in Europe, all 53 of them combined, added 1.6 billion. One league nearly matched the entire rest of the continent by itself. Total revenue tells the same story. Premier League clubs grew by 3.5 billion euros in that period, while the other 4 big leagues, Spain, Germany, Italy, France, grew by 5.9 billion combined, split across 4 completely different footballing nations, and it's not slowing down. For the 2025-26 season, English clubs are paying out roughly 2.4 billion euros in player wages. That's over 65% more than the Liga, the next closest league, and more than double what Serie A or the Bundesliga spend. This is not a gap anymore, it's a different sport wearing the same badge. And this isn't a one-season blip either. Look at cumulative transfer spending since the year 2000, and the Premier League has outspent the Bundesliga and Ligue 1 by more than 3-1, La Liga by more than 2-1, and Serie A 1.6-1. That's 25 years of compounding financial advantage, and the gap has only been accelerating in the last 5. So how did one domestic league become richer than entire footballing nations? Start with TV. The Premier League sells its rights as one collective package, which sounds boring, but it means every club, even the ones getting relegated, walks away with more money than most European champions. Then layer on the international side, nearly half of the Premier League's broadcast income now comes from outside the UK because the league has spent 2 decades marketing itself as the most watchable, most chaotic, most anyone can be anyone product in world football. La Liga has Real Madrid and Barcelona. Ligue 1 has PSG. The Premier League sells the whole league as the star. That global appetite means English clubs are competing for transfers and wages using a revenue base that clubs in Rome, Marseille or Lisbon simply cannot touch no matter how well they're run. If you're a fan of any other league right now, drop a comment telling me if your club has already lost a player it couldn't afford to keep. I guarantee the comments are going to be full of these stories. And here's the kicker. Even the Premier League's domestic TV deal alone, just the UK portion, brings in more per club than most of Europe's other leagues manage from broadcasting entirely. It's not one revenue stream out competing the rest of Europe, it's every revenue stream at once. Money alone doesn't explain everything. Though, because there are supposed to be rules, financial fair play was introduced by UEFA back in 2010 under Michel Platini, specifically to stop clubs from spending far beyond what they actually earn. And on paper, Premier League clubs have been caught bending those rules more than anyone. Take Manchester City. Leaked documents published by Der Spiegel alleged the club inflated sponsorship income through companies linked to their Abu Dhabi ownership and quietly topped up player and manager salaries outside their official accounts. UEFA banned them from European competition for 2 years. Manchester City took it to the Court of Arbitration for Sport and got the ban overturned, largely because key allegations were ruled time-barred under the statute of limitations, not because the underlying facts were disproven. Then there's Chelsea under Todd Boehly. Chelsea spent well over £500 million on transfers while barely staying inside financial fair play limits. How? By handing out contracts of 7, 8, even 8.5 years, because a transfer fee gets divided across the length of the contract for accounting purposes. Sign a player for 8 years instead of 5, and suddenly your books look dramatically healthier even though you spent exactly the same amount of cash. It worked so well that UEFA and the Premier League were both forced to rewrite the rulebook in 2023, capping amortization at 5 years no matter how long the contract runs. Quick reminder, if this kind of stuff is making your blood boil, hit subscribe, because we're only halfway through. Here's the part that makes it structurally different from anything happening in other leagues. Newcastle United are now owned by Saudi Arabia's Public Investment Fund, joining a Premier League that already contains Manchester City, backed by Abu Dhabi Wealth, and Chelsea, backed by American private equity. Critics have long described this pattern as sportswashing, using the global visibility of football to soften a nation's or an owner's public image, while the football itself becomes almost secondary to the financial and political project underneath it. You can find versions of this argument applied to Qatar's ownership of PSG in France too, but the Premier League has ended up with the highest concentration of state-scale and mega-wealth ownership sitting inside the single richest domestic competition on the planet. That combination doesn't just outspend rival leagues, it resets what a normal wage bill or transfer fee even looks like, dragging every other Premier League club into an arms race that clubs in Serie A or Ligue 1 aren't even invited to. Put it side by side and it's almost funny. PSG's wage bill makes up around a third of all of Ligue 1's combined spending, and Bayern Munich alone accounts for over a quarter of the entire Bundesliga's wage bill. Those clubs are considered financial monsters in their own leagues. In the Premier League, that level of spending gets you into a fight for a top 6 finish, not a guaranteed title. So what does all of this actually do to everyone else? It turns other leagues into shop windows instead of destinations. Serie A, once the wealthiest league on the continent in the 90s, now regularly loses its best young talent to England before it even gets the chance to develop them into stars at home. Ligue 1 outside of PSG survives largely by selling promising players north for transfer fees because it can't compete on wages long term. Even historically self-sufficient academies find their brightest prospects picked off early, sometimes as teenagers, by clubs that can offer wages the selling league's biggest side can't match for a first-team regular. The knock-on effect hits competitiveness too. Smaller domestic leagues get less international broadcast interest because their best players and most compelling storylines keep migrating to England, which then funds the next round of Premier League spending, which pulls in the next wave of talent. It's a loop that reinforces itself every single transfer window. Think about what that does to a league's identity over time. A competition that used to produce and keep its own icons for a decade now produces a highlight reel for 2 seasons before the player is playing somewhere in England instead. Fans stop expecting to keep their stars, broadcasters stop paying premium prices for a league they know as a preview channel, and the gap that started as a financial one turns into a gap in prestige, in global attention, in the next generation of kids deciding which league's shirt they actually want to wear. The result isn't that other leagues are badly run, it's that they're competing in a different financial universe, and calling it the same sport is starting to feel generous. So is the Premier League killing football, or is it just playing the game better than everyone else, and getting blamed for it? Honestly, I think it's both, and I think that's exactly the problem. Let me know in the comments which league you think gets hit hardest by this, and whether you think there's any realistic fix, or if this gap is only going to widen from here. If this kind of deep dive is your thing, subscribe because there's a lot more of this coming. See you in the next one.